Hi, I'm Ellie and welcome back to Arcadia, my self-converted Toyota Hiace which I am currently travelling Australia in. Now I started my trip a few weeks ago and in this short time I have learnt a lot, so I thought I should make a first impressions video to let you know all the things I've noticed about van life so far. I'm Ellie Wilder and you're watching Wilder in Motion. So for those of you who don't know, I am free camping, which is also called boondocking, which basically means I have a stealth camper and I'm parking up more or less wherever I want. I have a couple of criteria that I follow. I might do a separate video where I talk about how I stealth camp in Australia, but one thing that I've noticed is that it's really easy to find spots. I found appropriate locations everywhere, I found it really easy to park, and I haven't had any issues, and I pretty much just stay in each spot one day or so, but if I want to stay in the same area, it's really easy to find another spot in that same area. Next up, I have found amenities to be widely available and easily accessible. This includes things like toilets, showers, places to fill up water, and bins. These are in places one would expect, such as at the beach. Of course, there's toilets in shopping centres whenever I go grocery shopping, as well as around at restaurants, but also in places that I wouldn't necessarily have expected, like I drove through a graveyard the other day and they had a toilet block there and water to fill up too. I've also found that I use about 20 litres of water each week. I have two 20-litre freshwater tanks in the van, however I find I just refill that one 20-litre each week, and that's been fairly easy to do. I try to fill up my drink bottle outside of the van as much as possible so that I'm minimising the amount of usage of my freshwater in the van. Continuing on with water, I found that my wastewater does smell. Now this is probably because I'm using such a small amount of water to wash up that the water that does go down the drain is quite dirty. And so I think the solution for this is to either get some kind of chemical that I can put in the tank that's going to minimize that, but also just modifying the tank so that I can empty it more easily and therefore more regularly. Next up, washing clothes is easy, drying clothes is hard. Because I have a water pump and a sink in the van, hand washing is pretty simple when it comes to your average clothes items. However, actually finding somewhere to dry is a little more difficult because I can only have so many things drying inside the van at once and it doesn't dry as quickly inside as opposed to outside. And I do have just a cord that I could tie onto a tree or something like that and act as a clothesline, but given that I am boondocking and I am a stealth camper, it's not so stealth to have stuff hanging outside. So this is something that I'll probably just stick to doing at campgrounds. When it comes to being stealth, I found that the biggest giveaway is light. When I have a light on inside, but it's dark outside. Even though I have window coverings, they are not block out, so some light still does get through. So this might be noticeable to residents if I'm staying on a residential street, or just people walking past. So for this reason, I try and sleep a bit more with the sun, going to bed a bit earlier. This allows me to take advantage of the daylight hours and do things like making the bed and getting ready for bed while it's still a bit light, and then as it's a bit darker, I'll just be watching a movie or something and I don't need the lights on. As for making the bed, I was worried that I would find it a little inconvenient because there is the great fixed bed versus fold out bed debate, and I have one of the ones where it's two bench seats that folds out into a bed, and I thought it could be a little annoying to pull out and pack up each day. However, I've actually found that making it up in the evening is really quick and easy and not that inconvenient at all. What I found a little more annoying is the pack up again in the morning. Maybe it's just all the folding, but it just seems to take me a little more motivation to get things tidied up again, but this is something that is a small price to pay for the added room that I get for having the bench seats. Let's talk about temperature. I was worried that traveling in summer in Australia in a van that I was going to boil, but I have had a few 40-degree days and I'm still here to tell the tale. They haven't been too bad. I think I might do a separate video where I talk about how I stay cool, but for the most part just keeping the airflow going has made it perfectly tolerable, and there have been a few cool nights as well where I found just an extra blanket or a jumper has been all that I've needed, but it's still summer, so only time will tell. As for power, I found that my solar has been able to maintain my fridge quite well, even though there has been a couple of rainy days. The bigger problem has been my laptop. Because it needs 180 watts, I haven't been able to charge it using a 12-volt charger because these only go up to about 90 watts. So for that reason I have to put it through the inverter, which really sucks power, and that's not something I want to be doing for a long period of time. So I've tended to use libraries, restaurants or other public spaces where I can access their power and often also their Wi-Fi. So that has been a good solution, but I've just needed to plan my schedule a little bit to make sure that I can be in one of those locations where I probably am now editing this video. Next up, food, or more specifically, how much food costs. I've either underestimated the cost of food or underestimated how much I would eat, because I've definitely gone over what I anticipated spending per week on food. Now I have stocked up on a few items to kind of fill my pantry a little bit, so I'm hoping that over time it kind of evens itself out now that I do have a full pantry, but only time will tell how much it ends up being. I think maybe after my first month of van life, I'll do a rundown on the actual cost of van living. As for cooking that food, I definitely don't need a fixed stove. I think it looks really great and it adds a level of luxury to the van, but considering the whole setup cost about $400 and I could have got a $20 just butane camping stove from Kmart, in hindsight I probably would go with the camping option and maybe do that in my next van. Though I am happy that I installed this one, I just don't use it as much as I probably thought I would have. Next, ants. Now I have been warned about the ants, but I didn't realize that they would get in here quite so quickly. I think I've had at least 2 invasions of ants so far. I think the main thing is to not park touching any kind of shrubs or trees because that's how they can really easily get in. For the most part, I think we're in the clear at the moment, but I know it's going to be something that I need to stay on top of. Just wasn't expecting it in regional Australia. I thought it would be more in rural areas, but I think I'm going to get some of the Mortines that they don't like to walk through and spray the tires with that, and hopefully that is enough to keep them more or less at bay. Next up, I haven't found it lonely. I'm a solo traveler and I was excited to have my own space and do things on my own schedule, and as an introvert I didn't think it would be too much of a problem, but I thought after time it might wear down a little bit. But I found it really easy to stay in touch with people via message, and so far I haven't actually gone a week without having someone come and visit me. Even just yesterday I was messaging a friend who mentioned she was on holidays and happened to be in the exact same suburb, so we met up for coffee. Now that's going to become less common the further away I get from my hometown, but for the time being things are going very well. And finally, it's fun. It's great to have all this freedom and to be able to go where I want, when I want, to explore new parts of Australia, as well as be productive working on some of my own projects. Van life so far has been everything I've hoped and more, and I'm still only in the early days, so I am very excited for the rest of my trip to come. Well, that's it for this video. If you want to check out my van tour or my van conversion, I'll link those in the description below. If there's anything that I didn't address about the start of van life that you have a question about, leave that in the comment section and I will answer you there. If you want to be a part of this journey, then make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.